And we are now back with more from Marc Schulman to talk about this. First of all, are these tariffs enforceable? And interesting that this was not something that came up in the very beginning of his presidency when, tariffs seemed to be all the rage.
Well, look, he uses tariffs as a weapon that he can try to use singly. It's not at all clear. The Supreme Court is going to rule in the next week or two whether he has the right to have any of these tariffs. He may have to give refunds of billions and billions of dollars for all the tariffs he's taken until now. Number two, he negotiated deals with all these countries. They have deals, 10%, 5%, 20%, whatever it may be. Now he's going to change the game. I mean, you can't negotiate a deal with Trump after this, right? Who can negotiate with Trump with such a deal? But the most important part is this thing is an obsession that makes no sense from a geopolitical level. He made it very clear. He talks about this, that we have to own it as opposed to rent it. He has some sort of real estate thoughts as if he's still a real estate developer. You have to own everything, and renting is bad. The reality is the United States has the rights to have as many bases as it wants in Greenland. It once had 12 bases. It once had 5,000 troops in Greenland. It now has one base with 200 troops on it. So if Greenland is so important to American security, why is there only one base with 200 troops? You can easily put, America put 20 bases there if it's that important. He has this obsession. I think it has something to do with the fact that he wants to go down in history as the first president who expanded the United States since the 19th century. Since the purchase of Alaska and Hawaii, the United States hasn't gotten any larger, and he wants to be the one to do it. So that's the only thing that makes any sense. There's no logic. 75% of the American people are against this. Even some of the supporters of his in Congress have basically said, you just can't do this. So, again, it's very hard to understand what Trump wants and doesn't want. We know what he wants, but what he thinks he can do and not do. He thinks there is no limits to his power. As he's soon going to be a lame duck or is starting to get into that point, I think he's going to find more and more limits to his power. And of course, actions like this are so outrageous. On the other hand, look, he's been trying to destroy NATO since day one. Since his last term, he wanted to pull out of NATO. He wasn't allowed to by some of his advisors. Now he'd like to pull out of NATO. Nothing more the Russians would like would be a destruction of NATO. So this would certainly help destroy NATO, let's put it that way, attacking another NATO country. I mean, he refuses to rule out using military force. Will the armed forces go forward with an order like that? I don't know. But it's beyond anything one could have imagined.
Right. And listen, obviously, we know that Greenland doesn't want any of this. And even if he does do something like this, I can't imagine the people there are going to be very cooperative of being, a 51st
right, but
state.
There's 50,000 people there aren't going to, have an uprising against them, a guerrilla warfare against American troops. That's not going to happen either. It's pretty harsh conditions, not to mention everything else. But no, the Greenland people, the people in Greenland do not want to be part of the United States. They rather stay with Denmark. Denmark doesn't want to give it up. It makes no sense. And again, his reasoning is just absurd. I mean, China and Russia are going to take it over. Why would China and Russia take it over? The NATO is there to defend it. The United States is there to defend it. I mean, Russia and China are not going to take it over. Are they going to buy some of the mineral rights? Well, guess what? The United States can make a deal with Denmark to get exclusive rights to all the minerals if that's what the United States wants. Greenland's open for that, but they're not open to giving up their sovereignty. And, we reached a point in international relations with every rule that we once knew no longer applies. Well, you know what? Living in a jungle is not really the best situation for our children and grandchildren. So this is not a good set. Look, he has 3 more years as president. We've just gotten through the first year. How much more damage he can do to international relations in the world, I do not know. Could be a lot. He's been great for Israel, but the rest of the world has been suffering. Let's put it that way.
Marc Schulman, thank you very much as always.
My pleasure.